This is an article out of Fortune that I wanted to talk about because we need to talk about how tourism, how the boycotts from other countries are going to impact America, especially in a time where domestic travel is probably going to be down because of the way they have been cutting and gutting the FAA. So this article out of Fortune says U.S. could lose $23 billion in GDP and 230,000 jobs if foreign tourists stay away. And I am saying that foreign tourists should stay away because of how ICE is treating people, how they're detaining people, and how Trump is going crazy with how he is dealing with other countries. I say people should stay away until America gets its act together. Anyways, let's look at this article. International travel to the U.S. appears set to decline, with bookings falling as tariff battles with more intense screening ward off potential visitors. Service-oriented sectors like restaurants and lodging will be hit hardest as Canadians lead the boycott. Tariff bluster, canceled visa, and enhanced screening at border crossings and other checkpoints may be pushing foreigners to put a pin in their plans to visit the U.S. this year. The impacts could ripple through America's economy. A 10% drop in international tourism this year, based on the decline in foreign visitors to the U.S. by air in March, could cost America $23 billion in GDP and the equivalent of roughly 230,000 jobs, according to estimates from Implin chief economist Jennifer Thorvaldsen. I know I butchered her name. Sorry. Dining and lodging would be hit the hardest, forfeiting over 50,000 and just under 45,000 jobs, respectively. Entertainment is next on the list with an estimated 25,000 jobs lost, followed by retail industries, including gas stations at 19,500. Lost labor income comes out to just over $13 billion, including wages, salaries, and earnings by proprietors. And the interesting thing is, I believe that all of these things that are listed right here, these sectors, are going to be impacted as tariffs stay high, as the economy stays going all over the place, as jobs are uncertain. These are all going to be impacted as well because domestically, we're going to be holding on to our money. So dining and lodging is going to be down. Entertainment is going to be down, as well as leaving the house, because when you leave the house, it costs money. So I believe that all of these sectors are going to have a double whammy. There's not a lot of automation in service sectors, Thorvaldsen told Fortune. And so the impact on employment is kind of outsized for the reduction in spending. It's important to note the March dip in air traffic has been largely attributed to Easter falling much later than usual this year. Foreign arrivals spiked in April, bringing the decline over the 2 months to just 1.6%, according to Oxford Economics. Still, the 10% figure appears to be a scenario worth modeling, with Oxford expecting international arrivals to fall 8.7% this year, down slightly from its March projection of a 9.4% drop. It's a stark reversal from the industry's optimistic outlook heading into 2025. As recently as December 2024, Oxford anticipated an 8.8% boost in international arrivals and a 16% increase in spending by foreign tourists. As of last month, the firm found 11% fewer flights had been booked to the United States for the months of May through June compared with 2024. Delayed bookings may account for a share of this gap, as some travelers may still plan to visit, but a portion is likely due to travelers selecting a non-U.S. destination instead or putting off the trip. Aaron Ryan, Director of Industry Studies at Oxford subsidiary Tourism Economics, wrote in a note Tuesday. And here is the drop. So this says airline passenger numbers down due to fewer tourists visiting. And I am no economist, but this looks like a bad thing with this line trending down like... That doesn't look good, but like I said, I am no expert. Canada leads boycott of American tourism. That represents a direct hit to the service sector, as well as a blow to supply chains and, of course, Americans' pocketbooks. For every dollar no longer spent by foreign tourists in the U.S., an additional additional $1.19 is lost throughout the economy, according to Thorvaldsen's estimates. It's possible, she acknowledged, that some of the projected layoffs can be avoided by simply cutting workers' hours. However, the effect on income and therefore household spending remains the same. It really showcases how interconnected everything is in this economy. And I've already been talking about how this is going to be a ripple effect, because even if these people keep their jobs, they're going to have to hold on tightly to everything. So it goes back to the industries that we were talking about earlier that will be impacted regardless. Thorvaldsen's analysis covered the aggregate impact of a tourism shock on the United States rather than zeroing in on local and regional economies. However, popular tourist destinations like Florida, New York, and Vegas could be especially vulnerable. Many towns on the Canadian border in places like Washington State are already reeling as Canadians put their elbows up and boycott the U.S. in response to Trump's hostility on trade and threats to make America's northern neighbor the 51st state. He's been quite ridiculous. I completely support Canadians staying away and boycotting our products. Completely support that. According to an April survey from Longwoods International, a Toronto market research firm specializing in tourism, 3 in 5 Canadians say current U.S. policies, trade practices, and political statements make them less likely to travel to America in the next 12 months. Get that higher. Make it like 4.5 out of 5. Political hostility and tighter border controls aside, tourists may also find they can get a better bang for their buck outside of the world's largest economy. Even though the dollar has weakened since Trump's chaotic tariff rollout in early April, it's still strong relative to many other major currencies. For example, visitors from Japan and Brazil can buy roughly 29% fewer U.S. dollars with the yen and real, respectively, compared with the end of 2019. While costs are only one factor considered by travelers, this poses a headwind to inbound travel and a tailwind for outbound travel. In other words, wealthy Americans may still shell out cash abroad, but the U.S. economy could take a significant hit as foreigners think twice. And we people with some sense can understand why they would think twice. I am here in Vegas, so I am interested to see how busy or not is going to be this summer, because I know that is how a majority of people make their money. And tourism is down. It says extended Las Vegas tourism slump shows April visits down 5.1%. It says tourism slumped again in April. A monthly report from the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority showed on Wednesday. Visitor volume fell to an estimated 3.3 or just over 3.3 million in April, down 5.1% compared to April 2024. 5.1% represents a lot of money not coming into the city and the wider state. LVCVA's summary of tourism numbers cited consumer uncertainty with evolving federal policies as a factor in the decline. Through April, about 900,000 fewer visitors have come to Vegas this year compared to 2024 levels, according to LVCVA. That's a difference of about 6.5%. And that's not even, obviously talking about summer numbers. But the crazy thing is hotel occupancy was still at 85%. The average daily rate, meaning the average daily rate of the hotels, was still $190 per day. I think this RevPAR is how much revenue the hotels were making, and room nights occupied. Right here it says 3.8. It looks like over 3.8 million room nights occupied. Since the daily rate is high, it says right here, the report also shows the Strip hotels are taking in 4% more revenue per available room than they did a year ago. That measure is an important gauge of resort profit, hitting $177, well, basically $178 on the Strip, but only $72 in downtown Las Vegas. And I really wonder how long these hotels can keep those numbers so high as people pull back and stop coming to the city as much. So average daily rates were up 5% on the Strip and up 4.7 downtown. And keep in mind, WrestleMania was here, and that helped drive April numbers up. So I wonder what the rest of the year is going to look like. Stay tuned. Let's have this conversation.